Guys, what is up? Mr. Cruz here to give you guys the rundown on one-step inequalities. Inequalities in general, but for this one, we're really only going to be solving one-step inequalities. So when we do one-step inequalities, it's the same thing as what we were previously going over with one-step equations. You're following the exact same rules. First, first, you're going to either be adding or subtracting to both sides, and then we're going to be and then you would be multiplying and dividing, but we're only going to be doing one step, so you're more than likely always going to be adding or subtracting on one side or the other. And we do this the reason we do this is because we're trying to isolate the variable. We're trying to get the variable to be on a side all by itself, and to do that we have to do the inverse operation. Inverse is just a fancy word that means the opposite. So if we're adding, then we got to subtract. If we're subtracting, then we got to add. If we're multiplying, then we got to divide. If we're dividing, then we got to multiply. All right. So we're always doing the opposite. It's like bizarro. I'll tell you what, I'll give you a piece of candy if you can tell me, the first person who can tell me what bizarro is. All right. So let's go ahead with this first example here. Let me turn my pen on. All right, so we have negative 12 is less than 8 plus b. So I'm going to do the same thing that you guys have seen me doing before. We're going to draw a river right down the middle of the inequality symbol, and I'm going to box up my variable. And when I box up my variable, I'm boxing up whatever operation is taking place to the left of it with everything it owns in the box. All right, so I'm left with a positive 8. So what am I going to do instead? Instead of a positive 8, I'm going to do the opposite, which would be to subtract 8. So I'm going to subtract 8 from both sides. This 8 over here is going to cancel out. And then I have 12 negative, or negative 12 minus 8. And when I do that, I should end up with negative 20. So negative 20 and b, and then my symbol should be like this. So negative 20 is less than b, or you can kind of flip it around if you wanted to, because I know we like to have our variables on the left side, but we make sure that the symbol stays the same. So here I notice that the symbol is eating b, so I got to make sure that it's eating b over here as well. And then we can kind of flip it around like that if we wanted to. So b is greater than negative 20, because that it kind of makes it easier to understand. So I'm going to go through these next slides really quick because I kind of just say the exact same thing. All right. So as we said, we flipped it around and we did this, right? So b is greater than negative 20. So that means I got to put an open circle, right? Because you can't just solve this. You also have to graph this. I'm going to put an open circle on negative 20. And if b is greater than, what direction is it going to go? So essentially on this number line that I have at the bottom, what direction are all the numbers that are bigger than negative 20? Now, because it's negative, right? I don't want us to get confused. All of the numbers that are bigger than negative 20 are going to be to the right. All right. Reason being, somebody who owes $20 is not, or never mind, hold on. Somebody who owes $19 is richer technically than somebody who owes $20. So you want to owe less. So that's kind of like the way it works with negative numbers on a number line. Like on a number line, when it comes to negative numbers, the closer the number is to 0, the bigger that number actually is. Because I think about it in terms of money, right? The closer you get to 0, that means that like the closer you're getting to like not owing anything, kind of like paying off a credit card. So here we go. Oh, you guys don't know about that yet, but you will eventually. Bam. So that's how we go. All right, let's move on to the next one. Do it again. Draw my river, box up my variable. I don't need to box up the subtraction symbol because it's not to the left of p. So p minus 5 is less than negative 13. I have minus 5 left over. So what am I going to do instead? I am going to add 5. Got to do the inverse. This right here is going to cancel out, and p is going to be left all by itself. And then in my calculator, I'm going to do 13 negative plus 5, and that's going to give me negative 8. And then my symbol is going to stay the same. So p is less than negative 8. So when we look over here for our graph, so it's going to be an open circle on negative 8, right? And it's going to be open circle because if my gator mouth doesn't have the line underneath it, right? If I take the time to draw the line underneath it, then that means when I draw my circle, I need to take the time to color that circle in. So because this one doesn't have the line underneath it, that's why my circle is open. It's called an open circle. So if p is less than negative 8, all the numbers that are less than negative 8 are going to be to the left on the number line. All right, boom. Let's go to the next one. So j plus 6 is greater than negative 4. Draw my river, box up my variable. I'm left with plus 6. So I'm going to do minus 6 instead, doing the inverse. So that's going to cancel out. J is going to be left by itself. Negative 4 minus 6 in my calculator is going to give me negative 10. Stop trying to do this stuff in your head and use your calculator now that you finally get to use it. All right, so J is greater than negative 10. Man, that's a jacked up looking gator mouth. So on my number line, right, we established that J is greater than 10. So it's going to be an open circle on negative, or J is greater than negative 10. All the numbers that are bigger than or greater than are going to be to the right. All right. Yep. Look how we did that. All right. So we're going to go over a problem here that's going to be different. The difference about this one is that we're going to have to change the symbol. So we're still following the same rules, except whenever we multiply or divide by a negative number, the inequality sign has to be flipped around. All right. That might sound confusing, but we'll kind of explain it when it happens. So it pretty much it just means if I ever have to multiply or divide on both sides of my river with a negative number, then I got to flip my inequality symbol. All right. So I have 8 times a number, or 8 times x is greater than 40. So because I'm multiplying already, because x and 8 are being multiplied, I need to divide instead. So let's divide both sides now. So this over here is going to cancel out. X is going to be left by itself, kind of like my high school girlfriend. And then 40 divided by 8 is going to be 5. So x is greater than 5. Bam, bam, bam. Now, I did not have to multiply or divide on both sides by a negative number, so my inequality symbol is going to stay the same in this case. So when I graph it, if x is greater than 5, all the numbers that are bigger than 5 are going to be to the right. All right, next one up. So now I have d divided by negative 2 is greater than 7. So I'm going to draw my river, and then I'm going to box up my variable. Now I'm left with divided by negative 2. So what am I going to do instead? I'm going to multiply by negative 2 instead. So multiply by negative 2, put a parentheses around there, multiply by negative 2 on both sides. So d is going to be left by itself. 7 times negative 2 is going to give me negative 14. Now, because I did this part here, I multiplied both sides by negative 2. My gator symbol was initially like this. This time, I'm going to switch it to this. So I have d is really less than negative 14. Reason being, again, is because of this step right here. I multiplied both sides by a negative number. So, bam, I have to flip it around. So d is less than negative 14. That's going to be an open circle on negative 14, and all the numbers that are smaller are going to be to the left. All right, let's go over one more example here. Oh, this time we have the inequality symbol that's less than or equal to, or greater than or equal to. So I have negative 8 times z is greater than or equal to negative 24. Draw my river and box up my variable as best I can there. So I'm left with negative 8 times. So instead I'm going to divide. So divide both sides by negative 8. All right, z is left by itself. Negative 24 divided by negative 8 is going to give me a positive 3. But because of this right here, I divided both sides by negative. I'm going to flip my inequality symbol around. So I have z is less than or equal to 3 as my final answer. And let's go ahead and graph it. Z is less than or equal to 3. So that means it's going to be a closed circle on 3. And then if it's less than or equal to, that means all the numbers to the left are going to be less than or equal to negative 3. All right, so there you guys go. This stuff is pretty easy. The big thing that you guys might have to look out for is like remembering to flip your inequality symbol. That's the thing that most people mess up, is forgetting that they have to flip the symbol when you divide or multiply both sides by a negative number. All right, good luck on you guys' assignments, and I'll holla at you guys later.